Hey guys, welcome back to the psychological video series. I'm your psychologist Ashok Kumar Tamburaj from the Armed Forces Preparatory Academy, Nagpur. Now in this last part of this series, we will be discussing about the test which most of the candidates feel, sir, I don't know what to bring out. I would say it is one of the mystery test of the psychological test, that is a self-description test. Now why self-description test is added in the psychological test and what do the psychologists want from it? Of course, we will be discussing in detail about all these things, but I thought it should be better if I tell you something much more in detail regarding the various other aspects of the testing procedure, the assessment procedure, and I feel you should know this before we start talking about the self-description. Now what are these concepts? So there are two concepts basically we are going to discuss, something which is quite known to you. The first concept what we have in mind is a concept of trainability. Now we all know that you are being assessed in the SSB by various assessors. After that, there is something called training comes. You will be sent to the academy where you will be groomed up to be a gentleman cadet to an officer. Now what happens in the process of training, that most of you must have seen the video, like you are mentally and physically prepared to face the challenges of the military life. But when the assessor is doing an assessment, that itself he is predicting how much a candidate can benefit from the training. So that is one concept we will be discussing. And the second concept which we are going to discuss, of course, the personal information questionnaire, the PIQ. What is the role of the PIQ and how the psychologist uses his PIQ to get more data regarding a particular individual, his qualities. So there are like so many doubts you have regarding the PIQ. So we will be talking about these two things and then only we will be going to self-description. Now why I have kept the self-description out at the last? So you will understand it once we start discussing more about the concept of trainability. So come guys, let us discuss the basics of the concept of trainability. Now we all know that the importance of training, and we also know that the basic concept of training is younger the better. Catch someone young and train them so you can mold them into anything you want. But this is the purpose. You won't believe why the Sainik schools were started. So that is a different story why the Sainik schools were started. But then the patriotism, the eagerness to serve the country. So these things were going down. That is the time the government thought we should train the students right from young age. That was the basic purpose of starting the Sainik schools. And there this thing comes, you catch them younger and train them better. In the same way, when we are talking about the concept of trainability, once a candidate goes to the academy, what happens there? No, he is transferred physically and psychologically. Now the transformation won't take place with every candidate in the same level. We know certain for sure that various reasons, and you guys may have seen, may have heard the news or even read it in the newspaper. Nowadays there are so much material available in the YouTube and other places where you can find out this particular thing. There were candidates after clearing the SSB, medically fit, they come up in the merit, they go to the academy, but then they were unable to cope up with the training process, so they withdraw from the academy. Now this thing happens to some of the cadets. Now why this thing happened? Though we have selected the people based on their performance in the various testing process which takes place in the SSB, but still why some of the people they were not particular about completing the training? It is because these guys normally are the people who have been cleared by the assessors with few doubts. Now, what these few doubts could be? Like, no, they are younger, so they thought these guys would be trained much better even with this kind of a problem existing. Later on, the moment the person goes out of the academy, that is the time the system realizes that these kind of things cannot be ignored during the assessment process, and that is how the concept of trainability had come. So before taking a final decision, every assessor has to see whether this candidate can benefit from the training. So what are the aspects involved in trainability? Like, we talk about the various factors. Remember, the first factor we consider to award a trainability mark is that the type of entry. Now when we talk about type of entry, there are two things involved in that. One is the age, the other one is duration of training. Now, as we know that, I told you in the beginning, younger the better. So someone is coming at the age of 17 and a half, like I am talking about the NDA and TES entry. So they are so young, they are tender, so they can be groomed into anything we want. So that is why you must have seen typically in the NDA entry and 10+2 technical entry, there are more number of candidates clearing the SSB. In the same way, duration of training. NDA entry, it is 4 years of training, like 3 years in your NDA and 1 year in the respective services academy. So there, like 4 years is a lot of a period to change a person's personality. But when we talk about these two things, age and duration, the more you grow, the chances of trainability goes down. It is for a simple reason. At the age of 17, 18, someone is always considered to be immature. But someone is coming to the SSB at the age of 21, 22, and you know that maximum age is 27 in case of technical entry as well as certain other entries. And we do have a service entries where the maximum age limit is permitted up to 42, that is including your territorial army. Now I want to ask one question to you guys, just to think about it. How many of you really feel like you can change your personality once you have grown up into a complete man? You completed your graduation, you started working in some place, and in some cases, you know, especially we are talking about certain entries where even the married men are permitted. Such kind of places, after marriage you are having children, so what changes you are going to bring in your personality? So that is a big question in everyone's mind. That is why we always say, younger the age, more the duration, the trainability of an individual can benefit him. So when a 17-year-old guy comes for an SSB, there is so many things he has to learn, so that part of immaturity is accepted. But whereas when you are coming as a person who is for any other entry, the moment you crossed your age of 22, 23 and you are coming for the SSB, you are expected to be a mature person as it is, because you have no more or nothing much of a trainability left due to your age factor, and second thing, hardly you have 1 year to 1.5 years of training. And this 1 year and 1.5 years, wherever the academy you go, the training part mainly focuses on keeping you physically fit, mentally tough, but then bringing a change in the core values may not be possible. So keeping this thing, let us go to the next point. Now when we talk about OAR, as we all know that this is the very first test you take when you go to SSB, the intelligence test. Based on the intelligence test, the assessor comes to an understanding what is your likely OAR, that is your officer intelligence rating. Now when we talk about officer intelligence rating, I would like to tell you a few things, like normally the questions asked by candidates to me. Sir, how much important OAR over the PPDT? There is no doubt that PPDT is the primary test, OAR is a confirmatory test. When your PPDT goes too well or it is too bad, there is no need to refer your OER. OER of an individual is referred only when he is having a partial understanding from the assessor. Like this guy is a doubtful case. As you all know that is a typical borderline person. Apart from that, the OER is given to the psychologist in the second stage as well. What is the role of OER in the second stage? There is statistically proven thing that someone is having a good OER, he will benefit more from the training than someone who is having a lesser OER. So for me as a psychologist, I should know about the OER of a candidate. And then the third point, the socio-economic status. What is the socio-economic status? It is nothing but where you come from, what type of environment you lived, from what type of environment you brought up yourself. So all these things talks about your socio-economic status. So it includes your studies, it includes your parents, it includes your siblings, it includes the various activities you have done in your life. Now what do they do in the concept of trainability? As we all know that personality of an individual is mainly boosted up by the environment. There is a concept of nature versus nurture. Nature is someone's innate qualities, like what the qualities that he acquired from his parents through the genetics that comes in DNA. But then not that every time DNA plays an important role. It is a kind of an environment where he was brought up. So the environment plays an important role in grooming up your personality. So now it is imperative for the psychologist to know about your socio-economic status, so that he can make a rough calculation in his mind, some kind of assumption he can make. Someone coming from this kind of a background and he is behaving like this. Obviously, your background can explain more about why you are behaving in such a way. Now, the three aspects we discussed: type of entry, OER, and socio-economic status. So, what do you think? How does the psychologist come to know about these things? Because he is not going to interact with the candidates at all. So this is where your PIQ comes handy to the psychologist. So from the PIQ, all the details I want: your type of entry, as it is I knew; the duration of training, yes I knew; but your age, typically speaking, for the same entry you will see a candidate with the minimum age to the maximum age. Especially it happens in certain entries like SSC Tech, TGC entry, where you see a final year graduate student who is about to pass out his exams. So he has come for SSB at the age of 20, 21. In the same age, you will see the candidate who is attempting his last SSB for the entry, and the maximum age is 27. So he must be somewhere around 26 to 26 and a half. Now you see, within the same entry, the candidates having different age, 20 to 27. So that means even the same entry, the age difference can make it can give you more marks if you are lesser age. It may reduce the marks if you are more in your age. And whereas other things like your OER, of course it is written in the PIQ, so the psychologist comes to know what is your OER. Then the entire PIQ talks about your socio-economic status. It talks about your parents, what is their profession, what type of people they are. No, we can roughly make out from the profession, but then remember, we don't carried away by the PIQ, though we are going through all these details. Where you stayed most of the part in your life, what are the facilities you were provided with in your life so that you can come up to this level. And then your various hobbies, various interests, whether you ever took some responsibility in your life, all these things we can make out from the PIQ. Last but not least, the PIQ also brings out whether you are a fresher or a repeater to the SSB. As we know that assessment of a fresher and an assessment of a repeater is different. It doesn't matter whether you have taken coaching before or not, but attending the SSB in real time cannot be equaled with any training. So that means when a guy comes very first time to the SSB, he will be given some sort of a credit. He will be given some kind of a, some kind of a leeway can be given to such kind of people than someone who is coming repeatedly to the SSB. So that is why I always say, more the number of attempts goes, so your chances of getting recommended gets reduced. So now this is another input we get from the PAQ. So now whatever the three things we discussed about the PAQ, now the last 2 points that you could see in the screen, insight and motivation. What is an insight? What is motivation? Insight is nothing but what do you know about yourself. When we say about self, if I say simply, it is nothing but knowing about your strengths and weaknesses, what type of a person you are. I think you all must be now connecting to where I am leading the presentation. Absolutely, by now you must have realized that the insight is something we are talking about the self-description test. The moment we say about strengths and weaknesses, the opinion, it points you towards the self-description test. The other aspect of self-description test, what we want to get is your motivation. Now, what is this motivation? Remember, there is a motivation of joining the defense forces that is different. Here the motivation is how much you are interested in improving yourself. Now, as a leader, you should always ready to improve yourself, ready to learn something in your life. So, do you have that kind of a motivation? So, these are the two things the psychologists want to find out in your self-description. So, by now you must have understood one thing clearly, that the self-description and PAQ, they play more of a referral role rather than a major role. No psychologist would select a candidate or fail a candidate based on his PAQ and self-description. If he is doing so, then there is no use of conducting the TAT, WAT and SRT. That is why in our assessment it is always said, read the PAQ at the end of the assessment. You have a TAT, you have a WAT, you have SRT, you read them completely. Whenever you have a doubt, of course you can any day go back and refer to the PAQ. So now this is the one thing I would like to tell you regarding the concept of trainability, PAQ and the connection of self-description. So now with this, I would like to take you to the next part of the video, that is the self-description test. So what is there in the self-description test, what is expected, what you should do, what you should not do. So let us go on discuss in detail. Okay guys, so now when we talk about the self-description test, so first let us understand the concept of self. What do you mean by self? Self is nothing but who you are and what you are made of. We all know that what we are made of. We are made of nothing but feelings, emotions, thoughts, actions, behavior, because we are all human. We also know that animals do have feelings, animals do have emotions, they also have thoughts, they also act, they also behave. But then there is one thing that is differentiating between the animal and human, is that our ability to understand these particular feelings, emotions, thoughts, actions, behavior clearly and keep changing it as per the requirement. So that is why we always say that human is a highly unpredictable nature. You can easily predict an animal, a dog. You feed him one day, it will keep following you till it dies. But then we know that the other side of the human, you feed him for 100 days and you don't feed him on one day, immediately the next day he will forget. Because we tend to see things in a different way and we tend to adapt with the situations in a different way. So first, to understand about your own self, you must understand what type of feelings you have, what type of emotions you have, your thought process, how it happens, then what type of actions, and from these actions your behavior is reflected. Remember, That's why we keep saying in the TAT also, your action should bring out your behavior rather than the words. So keeping this in mind, let us go to the next one. When we talk about self, okay, the self is divided into 4 parts. What are the different parts of self? Like when we talk about a private self, what is a private self? Private self is something related to you and may be connected to someone who is close to you. Like the private self we talk about is highly confidential. It happens between 2 people or 3 people. For example, the family members. So what type of a relationship you have with them and their own influence on your personality, and what do they understand about you or what do you understand about those people, they are called as the private self. Whereas in the social self, like the word suggests that your interaction with the society. What does the society think about you? Here the society means the immediate people who are in your surrounding. Maybe your friends, maybe your teachers, maybe someone you are seeing in your life, your neighbor, or the one you are meeting on the way to your school, college, office, anyone. So how these people think out, look at you, that creates an impression. So that is a social self. When we talk about inside self, what is an inside self? There are certain things only you knew about yourself. This is what the psychologists want to find out. Like I told you, the concept of insight. What exactly you think about yourself. Something which is known to you only. And then of course finally there is something called repressed. What is repressed? Sometimes we tend to forget certain things about ourselves. Maybe related to our past events, like when you were young as a child, what you did, you may not be remembering everything now. Maybe few important events happened in your life, but then most of the events were already repressed in your unconscious mind. Along with these incidents, there are certain qualities also repressed in yourself, and we want to find out this repressed self. Obviously, you know, by now you must have understood that this repressed self is something which comes out in your TAT, WAT and SRT. So that means you should understand yourself from the viewpoint of your parents, family members, social life, that is your society, like whoever the people who are interacting with, inside self, asking question to your own self, and of course the repressed self, nothing much you could do on your own except taking the psychological test, or there are various other ways are there, but no, that is not related to this particular topic now. But only thing you should keep in mind is that you should be knowing about yourself clearly. The more you know about your strengths and weaknesses, it would be easy for you to improve yourself. Now, this model, self-awareness model, some people keep asking me, sir, what should I do to know about myself? There are many things you come to know about yourself. The first thing, like people keep saying that, write a diary. So from morning till evening on a particular day, whatever has happened, so write it in a form of a diary before you sleep. If you keep this as a habit, over a period of time, when you go through a particular day, you will come to know in this particular day, like this was the situation happened and this is how I reacted to it. From there you will understand yourself, what kind of a person you are. So that is one way of looking at it. The other way is, now this self concept we are talking about, what you think about yourself, like your beliefs, your values, your attitudes, your behavior, feeling, opinion, everything it depends on your self concept. So what is the self concept is about? It is nothing but your opinion about your own self. Now understand one thing clearly. If you have a good understanding about yourself, you know exactly your present condition, it will be quite easy for you to improve yourself. At least you will make a better effort. So to give you one example, a guy who is studying in a class 12th, continuously scoring 80%, 90% in his exams. Now for that guy, if he makes an effort, he can score 100%. Whereas someone who is struggling to get the pass mark like 40%. What if that individual aims to score 100% in the final exam? Now whether he can achieve it or not, we are not discussing that. But now you see the difference between the real self and the ideal self. Now most of the time what happens is, you have a real self and you have an ideal self. What is your ideal self? That is your ambition. And when the gap between the real self and ideal self, if it is too large, it will have a negative impact on your personality. The first thing is, even after knowing that you cannot achieve certain thing, you keep trying it. But if you are not mentally tough person, the frustration will set up. And you know what happens the moment frustration comes? The frustration can lead to different outcomes. One of the outcome is you will be more aggressive kind of a person, or it could be regressive kind of a thing. You start crying like a child, or it may be possible that you will be into a more like a resignation mode. That is, you are staying away from the task. But the worst case can happen out of frustration is, people are getting into depression. So the depression can be harmful, as we know. It will make a person to any extent, like taking him to committing suicide, ending of his own life, thinking pessimistically. All this kind can happen if there is a frustration. And why the frustration comes? Because there is a gap between your real self and ideal self. Now I am not saying that you cannot achieve your goal, but then you may take your own time to reach to the ideal self. Maybe you have to put lot of effort compared to a person who is scoring 80%. A person scoring 40% definitely has to work double time, triple time, even multiple times. If you have that much interest in you, if you have that much motivation, if you have that much fire, then I would say yes, you can aim for higher. Sometime what you can do is, don't always look for a long term goal. Sometimes you should look for a short term goal, and achieving these short term goals will give you more confidence to boost yourself. So that is how you can improve your self concept. So this is that self awareness model which we are talking about. Now coming to the self description test, what we do in the SD, how to improve your self awareness, what you can do. The first thing is introspection. What is introspection? Asking the question to your own self. Why I failed in this particular task? What could have been the reason? Is it because of my lack of preparation, or is it because of my lack of knowledge? What else? So the more you ask question to yourself, you will get a introspection. You will get more details. Then the second point is observation. What is an observation? Like this is sometime people typically do. Videographing someone's performance and showing it to him. So you get an opportunity to observe your own performance. Like the video I am making. So whenever I want to know about my performance, I can check back the video. So I can observe how I performed in the particular task. So that is the observation method. And the third is feedback. The feedback is always useful to a individual's development. Not just giving a feedback, but receiving the feedback. You give a feedback to your friends about what they should do, what they should not do in their life, what they are good, what they are not good. In the same way, you ask your friend for the feedback. So giving the feedback and receiving the feedback. So it cannot always be either receiving or giving. It should be giving as well as receiving. And finally, the assessment tools. What assessment tools can help you to get your real qualities? That is your TAT, WAT and SRT. Like we are talking about all the personality tests which aims to bring out your real qualities. taking such kind of a test? But then how many of you would like to take a chance going to SSB and taking the psychological test to find out what type of a person you are? So that is not a logically possible way. But before going to SSB, you can take such task, you can talk to people like me. There are many experts are there, you can talk to them. They will be able to guide you before you go to the SSB. So that is more smarter way of doing rather than going and trying everything in the SSB. And let me tell you one thing clearly. I have seen many people, they told me, they've been remorse for doing such kind of a thing. They say that, sir, I wanted to go fresh and show my performance in SSB. I went, I got either screened out or conferenced out. Later on I realized that I haven't done anything great there. I should have learned something and then went to SSB. So this is what people feel. They feel sorry about their first attempt. And always remember, first attempt is the best attempt. If you want to clear your SSB in the first attempt itself, try to understand the process as much as possible and try to project yourself as a positive kind of a person. Now, understanding yourself and understanding of others. What do you think about yourself and what others think about you? Remember, it is not always necessary that what you think about yourself and what others think about yourself should be same. As we know that, so we are different and the individuals are different. So your interaction with the other people is always different. The way you interact with the parents, the way you interact with the brother and sister, the way you interact with friends, the way you interact with teachers, the way you interact with an unknown person. So everywhere there is a difference in terms of your behavior. So that difference should be reflected in your self description test. Like there are few things I thought, let us forget all these things. Let us come to the most important aspect which I would like to talk to you. That is what you should do and what you should not do in the self description test. So as you aware that there are 5 different topics are involved in the self description. So the very first topic is what do your parents / guardian think about you. Now we know that parents are the first contact in this world, and we have learned so many things from them, both genetically as well as being with them. So their behavior has a lot of influence in our personality. So it is, you must understand that what your parents' expectation from you. Like if I have to give you a few examples, suppose there is one candidate has written like this: my parents feel that I am a very sincere and obedient child, very affectionate towards brothers and sisters, respectful to elders, very responsible boy who remains calm in most situations. I am helpful and take care of all my family affairs, a good organizer and take leading part in organizing family functions. I am clear headed and my opinion is taken in all important matters. They enjoy my company. They are sure that I will bring good name and fame to the family. Now, this is what one candidate has written. Now, based on this self description, one thing the psychologist can understand is that it is a positive kind of a feedback what the parents had given. But then remember, opinion has to be always bringing out both the strengths as well as weaknesses. But here there are only strengths are shown, there are no weaknesses. So any psychologist, it looks like, this guy is trying to boasting himself just by bringing out the one side of a understanding, that is the positive side. I would even say that this is a single-sided self description. If you want to write a good description about your self, then please ask people to point out some of your mistakes, so that these mistakes can be brought out in the self description, and then later on it can be improved, when you go for your training period. Don't take it that just by looking at your self description or just that you have written some weaknesses of yours, the psychologist will reject you. It will never happen like that. If you see someone is saying that I am 100% sure that the person has got no knowledge about the selection process. In the selection process, again I am repeating, the primary test is your TAT, WAT and SRT. Self-description and PIQ are just the referral test. So don't worry too much about what the people say about your self-description. You should know about your own this thing. And the second one, what do your employer / teacher think about you? Like when we talk about parents, frankly tell me, how many of you feel your parents are such kind of a people, if you don't study well or if you don't work well at home, they will immediately send you out of the home. There may be few parents who are strict, but none of the parents will send out their children because they are not progressing in the studies or they are not progressing in the work. I would say parents try to give as much of their time as possible, as much of the facilities as possible to the children so that they can grow up in their life. For them, what is important? You should be a good person, you should be a good human. Like the values, the morals, whatever the things that you learn from them. So they focus more on that rather than talking about your academic issue. They know exactly what is your level. So they won't normally force you to achieve something which is not in your range. So, but in the case of teachers and employer, what they are interested more is, like by now you must have understood that the teachers and employer think about you purely in point of the profession. As a teacher, he wants you to be responsible, honest, hardworking, intelligent. So the same way the employer also wants you. Accepting additional responsibilities willingly. Now additional responsibilities, accepting willingly, what do you mean by additional responsibility? Going to school, going to college, our main focus is studies. So we study, get good marks, pass out, that is a regular. Apart from studying, the guy is taking interest in participating in some sports, games. He is participating in co-curricular and extracurricular activities like NCC, NSS, some social service he is doing, or participating in some competitions, or he is doing some kind of a paper presentation work. All these kind of co-curricular and extracurricular activities which are not mandatory for a person to pass out, remember, but still someone is doing. That shows this guy is a multitasking person. And as you know, a leader should always be a multitasking personality. And they are sure that any task given to me will be completed to their full satisfaction. Obviously, when a teacher is giving you a task or your employer is giving you a task, they expect you to complete the task with full satisfaction. And your discipline, they will not do anything which brings bad name to the unit or the institution. Like being a good human, you should never bring a bad name to your college, school or your workplace. That is the main aspect of a teachers and employer. They feel I am good natured and remain always cheerful. So being a good natured person, always cheerful, like your employer is looking at you whether this person can be promoted to the higher ranks, can he be taken as a leader, at least promoting as a team leader for 4 or 5 people. The similar way in your school and college, your teacher knows that okay, this guy can handle a small group, so let me make him a group leader. So that is what your teachers and employer expecting from you. So now you have to bring out these kind of positive things. Again, here there is no weaknesses are written. By now you must have understood one thing, that the teachers and employer main focus is on your professional knowledge, and then your behavior with your team, the behavior with your seniors and other people. So you want to touch about these kind of weaknesses, it is still accepted in the teachers and employer opinion. And the third aspect is, what do your friends and colleagues think about you? Like we all agree that friends are the best part of our life. They make our life cheerful, colorful, various things. And we would always love to spend our time mostly with the friends. So that means your friends should be knowing more about yourself than your parents and teachers, especially your close friends. So what you can write, for example, my friends feel that I am the kind of a friend who's hard to find. They feel that I will always be there whenever they need me. They feel I am good company and no get together can be complete without my presence. So that means your absence makes a void in their life. My friends feel that I will always give them good advice and will not hesitate pointing out their mistakes. Yes, being a responsible friend, if you see your friend going in the wrong direction, you should point out him it is wrong and bring him to the right way. They feel I am jovial person and believe in creating happy environment. Again, there is no weakness written. So it is the same way you are expected to guide your friend in the who's going into the wrong direction. The same way, when you go into a wrong direction, there is your friend to stop you, point you out that you are going in the wrong direction and pull you back to the right track. So there is no harm in writing few weaknesses what your friends have seen in yourself. And then of course the finally, what kind of a person you are. Now remember, in this place you are supposed to be more elaborative rather than parents, teachers and friends. You should know exactly who you are, what type of individual you are, what type of strengths and weaknesses you are having. So there is nothing to hide here. So you are a hardworking, sensible, honest person, performing duty efficiently, learning from mistakes and never repeating them, sensible, dependent upon the highly dependable to complete on the task in given time, and balancing work, entertainment, social needs, all these things. Because most of the time people say that these are the weaknesses identified by some of the friends, family members, that you are unable to manage the time properly. So writing again the strengths and weaknesses at this part will make the psychologist think that you are a guy who knows about your exact strengths and weaknesses. Like I told you in the beginning of the test, beginning of the video, that if you know about your strengths and weaknesses, it will be easy to train you. Otherwise, if someone doesn't know about his weaknesses, so it becomes a problem for any trainer to point him out, this is your mistake, and then go on to improve. But then you are expected to be a mature person who is knowing about the strengths and weaknesses equally. And in the last paragraph, what kind of a person you want to be. So now the question is, you have written the first 4 paragraphs, parents, teachers, oblique employer, friends, oblique colleagues, your own self. All these places you have written more strengths and few weaknesses. Now in the last paragraph, what kind of a person you want to be, there are 2 things you have to write about. One is the already existing problem, how you are planning to improve. Second thing is there any new qualities which you would like to learn in the future, something you would like to develop in yourself. In that way, self-description, the last paragraph of the self-description would be much better. But normally I have seen people writing 2 things. They want to improve their communication skill, they want to improve their general awareness, and 50% people they write they want to improve their physical. Now remember, these 3 things are routine, everyone is writing. Now communication skills are something that you are supposed to have improved as it is. No one has ever stopped you to improve your communication skills. So why you have not improved? If you have not improved now, what you are going to do once you become an officer? In the same way, general awareness. Like general awareness is something which is keep changing every day. The facts keep changing. No one can ever say that I knew everything. Even if you ask me, you ask any of the knowledgeable person in the world, he will say that no, I want to learn something new. So forget about writing something which requires a continuous learning throughout the life. But then there is something in terms of personality, the qualities which are mandatorily to be developed. Less general awareness or less communication skill may not make you a sufferer. But then if you have a problem in your qualities, then you will suffer a lot in your life. So we want to know exactly what is your understanding about your weakness and how you want to improve it. So in the last paragraph, you talk about your weaknesses you want to improve, as well as how you are planning to improve yourself. That will give us the kind of motivation we are expecting. Yes, this guy is working towards improving himself. So when we get such kind of a candidates, we can have good self understanding. He knows about his strengths and weaknesses. Now it will be easy for us to train him, provided this guy has also performed well in TAT, WAT and SRT. So that means by now you must have understood from the last 4 videos. Now this is the 4th video. You must have understood one thing clearly, that the TAT plays a major role in your selection in the psychological test, whereas the WAT, SRT, self-description, they are all just confirmatory series. Even if few minor mistakes in WAT, SRT and self-description, still the candidate can be cleared. But the mistakes what you commit in your TAT will affect your overall performance. So just to recap, what we have learned today is that, so the concept of trainability, how much you can benefit from the training is based on your age, type of entry, OIR, your socio-economic status, and these things we come to know from your PIQ. And finally, the insight and motivation comes from your self-description. Now the question is, some guys ask me, what if someone has got a good insight? He knows about its strengths and weaknesses, exactly. But then those weaknesses are so much and it is reflecting in his TAT, WAT, SRT everywhere. Will such kind of a people be recommended? Or if a person who has done well in TAT, WAT and SRT has written some major weakness, major negativity in its behavior in the self-description, so will he be selected or rejected? Or a candidate who has written only positive in the self-description, like what you have seen now, but then his TAT, WAT, SRT, every place it is the negativities which are coming out more. So will such kind of a person be selected or not? Now again, selection of a person doesn't depends on these kind of a small things. Understand one thing clearly, you have to bring a consistency in your performance. If a person's problem, TAT, WAT, SRT, all the 3 tests, your behavioral problems are reflected, and the same problem you are having in self-description or what you brought out to yourself. So what the psychologist will think, even after knowing this guy having this kind of weakness and still he is bringing out in the TAT, WAT and SRT, that shows actually it's a deep rooted problem, something coming from the unconscious mind. But someone like none of the responses in the TAT, WAT, SRT are so negative, but then in self-description he has written something negative. This happens to people, those who normally take others' opinion too seriously. For example, someone told you you are a short-tempered person, so you took it too seriously and you wrote in the SD, I am a short-tempered person. But actually you are not a short-tempered person. Your problem is you get angry when the thing goes out of control or when thing goes not as expected by you. Now when you get angry when things don't go in a proper way, it happens to everyone. It doesn't mean that you are a short-tempered person. A short-tempered person is someone who gets angry without any reason, without any provocation. Are you such kind of individual? That is the question you should ask before writing such kind of a negative words. So ultimately, seeing this, no psychologist will fail a candidate just based on the SD. Most of the psychologists, they believe TAT, WAT and SRT brings out his real qualities, what we expected in terms of that 15 officer like qualities, whereas the self-description may bring out or may not the exact qualities or in the exact way. Even few qualities coming out in TAT, WAT, SRT reflected in self-description still considered to be a acceptable one, if not the complete set of qualities what you are bringing out in the TAT, WAT and SRT. So keeping this in mind, My suggestion to you all is that please focus more on TAT. It is because that is the one test which takes a lot of time to improve. I can again give you a guarantee that WAT, SRT, self-description practice, just do 1 or 2 practice, your performance will improve to a great extent. But people struggling to perform in TAT even after going repeatedly to SSB, even after taking coaching from 2-3 places, different places, still they struggle in the TAT. If you could do well in TAT, there is nothing is going to stop you clearing the psychological test. So I hope you like this video. I hope the video series was useful. So I am glad to assist you guys, to prepare the SSB in the right way. So nice talking to you guys, and I hope we will get more time to meet you in the future videos if possible. So till the time, prepare well and take care of yourself. Jai Hind.